Another blow to the victims of Japan's nuclear disaster. A parliament-appointed investigation has ruled the disaster was man-made. The report found serious problems in both the government and plant operations. The Fukushima Daiichi plant was badly damaged after an earthquake and tsunami hit Japan in March 2011. Joining me now with more is Gordon Edwards, the president of Canadian Coalition for Nuclear Responsibility. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Sarika.
Take us back to that disaster. It was a while ago. Sort of what was the magnitude of it, so people understand?
Well, it was a huge disaster. The nuclear complex at Fukushima Daiichi consisted of 6 nuclear reactors. Only 3 of them were operating at the time of the earthquake, and those 3 reactor cores melted down completely at temperatures the melting point of the uranium fuel, which is around 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 2,800 degrees Celsius. So that releases enormous amounts of radioactivity. There were explosions not only in those 3 reactors, but also in a 4th reactor where there was no fuel in the core, but only in a spent fuel pool. But there was also great emissions from that reactor as well. So these 4 reactors were giving off radioactive materials over very large areas, and those radioactive materials are still in the soil, in the food, in the fish, and in the people.
And of course the big concern is, how did it happen? People always thought it was a tsunami, but what did this report find?
This report is very, very strong in its language. The executive summary alone is 88 pages long. The report itself is some 600 pages. It was 6 months in the making, and it has the full authority of the Japanese legislature, which is called the Diet. And what this report found is that there was collusion between the industry, the regulator, and the government to really promote nuclear power and not to take the precautions necessary to prevent such a disaster, to mitigate the effects of such a disaster, and to protect the health and welfare of the people affected by it. So it's a pretty damning report.
How are people in Japan responding to this?
Well, the people in Japan are very concerned about the startup of any of the reactors. As you may know, there were 54 nuclear reactors in Japan, accounting for 30% of the power, the electrical power in Japan. All 54 of those reactors were shut down until just last week when one of the reactors was started up. And what they're saying, what this panel is saying, is that all of the reactors in Japan are really at risk because of the failure to anticipate the damage caused by earthquakes. They dispute the industry's claim that all the damage was caused by the subsequent tsunami. They say the earthquake itself broke pipes in the unit number 1 and led to the loss of cooling and the emergency meltdown of that reactor. So they're saying that all of the reactors in Japan are at risk. They're also recommending that there should be a fully independent commission of inquiry into the standards, which are inadequate, the failure of the authorities to protect the health and welfare of the Japanese people, and also that there should be a regular parliamentary committee which holds its own hearings on a regular basis into the doings of the nuclear industry and into the regulator as well. The basic accusation of this report, and by the way, I should emphasize that this report was commissioned by the legislature and consisted of scientists, very well-placed scientists, medical doctors, seismologists, but not people in the nuclear industry. And their claim is that all of the Japanese policies, both from the regulator, from the government, and from the industry, have been for the promotion of nuclear power and not for the prevention of large-scale accidents such as this. There was a great deal of confusion at the time, and this was due to a complete lack of planning for adequate evacuation, for adequate protection of the population.
Okay, Gordon, thanks so much for giving us that information.
My pleasure. One thing I should add is that all other countries in the world are going to be looking at how these recommendations and findings might apply to their own countries, because similar recommendations have been made elsewhere as well.
Okay, Gordon, thank you.